Hey YouTube, Tom Houston with Tom Houston Photography here. I'm just making a video on all of the places I went and all of the things I saw on my Southwest trip. I won't go into much detail in this video about each place. I'm just going to do an overview of where I went and what I saw of my trip, and then I will make separate videos for each place so I can go into more detail about where to go, what to see, what I did, all that stuff. So it was me and my dad doing this road trip, so we flew to Phoenix, Arizona, rented a car there, and then we drove up to Sedona. We hiked around Sedona that night, stayed in Sedona after that, woke up, hiked around Sedona some more for sunrise. We did the Bell Rock stuff, and then we drove to Flagstaff after that, dropped our stuff off in Flagstaff, drove to the South Rim, saw the South Rim that afternoon and night, drove back to Flagstaff to stay that night, and then we woke up early that morning and drove to Desert View. In Desert View we saw things, it's like the South Rim, and then we drove from there up to Horseshoe Bend for the sunset, which is by Page, and then after Horseshoe Bend we stayed in Page that night, woke up the next morning, hiked around Page, saw the Hanging Gardens, which are there, which is vegetation growing out of the rock where the groundwater runs out. It was pretty cool. Then from there we went to Antelope Canyon. From Antelope Canyon we went to Monument Valley. From Monument Valley we went back to Page, stayed in Page for the second night, and then that morning we woke up and we drove to the North Rim. So we saw the North Rim, and then after the North Rim we rushed back up through Kanab, Utah to Bryce Canyon, and we just got the tail end of the sunset in Bryce Canyon. Hiked around Bryce Canyon in the moonlight, which I will go into. I wouldn't advise doing that. And then after that we drove back to Kanab, stayed in Kanab that night. After that, the next morning we drove to Zion. Saw Zion. After we hiked around Zion, we drove back to Page, and then the next day we drove from Page to Phoenix, and then the next morning we flew out of Phoenix. So that was the whole trip. It was a Tuesday to a Tuesday. It was quite busy, quite a bit of driving, lots of hiking, lots of photography. We lucked out a lot of times on timing and just how things were scheduled. It was a great trip. I would highly recommend going to the Southwest. It was one of the most epic places I've been in my life. Hey, just thought I would toss in a few quick general tips for my trip at the end of this video. First being, get the $80 annual park pass. You can get them from the parks or visitor centers. Very, very worth getting if you're going to see a lot of different places. We saved about $65 in our week of traveling. We went to a lot of places, but still, if you're going to lots of places, it definitely adds up. I know Bryce, Zion, and the Grand Canyon were roughly $25 to get in. So getting this pass, we could get in there and didn't have to pay the entrance fee, so rate there was over $60, $75. So very worth getting this pass. Also, it lets you get in to the parking areas at like hiking trails around Sedona, which are very worth seeing, so I highly recommend this pass if you're seeing a lot of places in the Southwest. Next tip is it gets really hot down there, so if you're doing any hiking, I highly recommend bringing a hydration pack of some kind. I was carrying my camera bag and my dad was carrying a hydration pack that we used throughout the whole trip. We basically brought it everywhere we went, and I would highly recommend bringing a hydration pack because it it definitely gets really toasty down there. So it's definitely worth bringing something that holds water for you. We also filled it with ice in our hotel before we left, so my dad got the nice benefit of walking around with ice water on his back, which I'm sure helped keep him cool. Next tip, my last one, is we got a small vehicle, and it saved a lot of money on gas, I'm sure, and it was really easy to drive up all of the switchbacks, mountains in Zion in the North Rim. So if you are doing research in the places you want to go in the Southwest and find you don't need an SUV, I wouldn't recommend getting one because it's probably not the easiest thing to drive up switchbacks as well. You probably spend a lot more money in gas, and it does kind of take away from your trip if you have to stop a lot at gas stations and such. So those are my tips. I will go through each specific place I went in some more detail in my next videos, so stay posted for those, as well as I have my photos up on my website. I'll put the link below, and they're in chronological order from Sedona area to Zion, so you can check those out. The link will be below, so please subscribe, and I hope that helps. Cheers.